What's up, Digital Business Evolution? Welcome back to the show. I have not one, but two very special guests with me today. I adore these two women and everything that they're doing in this world. So today we've got Della and Reese, who are partners in both life and business, which I can tell you right now is not the easiest thing. I know we talk about it a lot, doing business with your loved one and your partner. So they have such a special dynamic to bring to the table. Della is a trained therapist with over 8 years experience in psychology and mental health, and she focuses a ton on self-love and human behavior. And Reese is a mindset coach with over 8 years of experience as a fitness professional, helping others achieve both physical and mental wellness goals. Now she's strictly specializing in mental wellness and guides her clients through uncovering mental blocks so they can take bold action. Together, they are the co-founders of the Conscious Coaching Collective, and they guide women on the path of deepening their relationship with themselves so they can feel good and improve their mental health. So, based on everything that I just said, I am so excited for this conversation because I know we're probably going to be diving a little bit into the truth behind entrepreneurship and the mindset blocks that come up and just the internal battle that we all have. So if you're a listener who's dabbled in the entrepreneurial world, or maybe you're just someone who's interested in personal development and growth, this is definitely an episode that you're going to want to lean in for. Girls, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
So there are two of you here. If you can just give us like a quick little hello individually so the listeners hopefully can tell whose voice is who. Della, just tell us real quick, like, where'd you grow up? How'd you get into psychology? Like, what is the background?
Yeah, thanks. So hi, everyone. I am Della, and I am from Miami, born and raised. I actually went to school in Miami for all of my psychology training. And the reason that I actually got into psychology was back when I was 16 in high school. If any of you are familiar with Danielle Steele's His Bright Light, which is a story based on a true story on the life of her son, who had a host of like mental health challenges throughout his life and unfortunately ended up ending his life. That really was, after reading that book, I knew that psychology was something that really interested me and something that I wanted to pursue.
Wow.
Shortly thereafter, I remember having an experience actually with an adult with autism. And that is what then kind of motivated me to continue pursuing psychology and focusing on individuals, not just like typically developing people, but also people with autism and different neurodivergent needs. So that's really where it all started. And I've been full into psychology since then and have loved every moment of it. Can't imagine myself really doing anything else besides it. And that's where I got started.
Wow. Incredible. And something that I love that you do and you talk about often is the work that you do with parents and with families. And as a former school teacher, I just see such importance there. There's so much depth to what you do and how you're really helping people heal from the inside out, both as individuals, then as families, bringing it out into their communities and schools and the Conscious Collective. So I love that. Reese, give us a little bit of a background on yourself.
So I'm Reese, also born and raised in Miami. And I took a little different route, not so much psychology based, more physical health. And the reason being was because I got hurt really bad in high school. So I was an athlete most of my life.
Still
an athlete forever. And soccer was my sport. And my freshman year, I got seriously hurt. I needed 2 emergency surgeries. It was insane. And the recovery process was a lot of physical therapy. And I got really close to my physical therapist, and it kind of sparked the idea of, oh, maybe I can do this. So I pursued physical therapy in college. It turned into sports medicine. And then that turned into personal training. I appreciate those that are in sports medicine and the things that they do for their athletes, but it's just so time consuming. It's a job where you're traveling every weekend, maybe 80 hours a week, and you're getting paid like $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem feasible for me in the life that I wanted for myself. So I pursued personal training, and I had a really good career as a personal trainer. It was really awesome. I got to help hundreds of people with their physical health, but where I'm at now is just really diving into mental health and how I can help those with their mental health, but also with the mental blocks that they have that's kind of stopping them from doing the things that they want for themselves.
Yeah. I love it. And such a natural progression. I mean, I had such a similar story in that I went to school for physical therapy, sort of transitioned a couple different times, obviously worked as a trainer for 18 years, but it's so interesting how personal development parallels with fitness. And then also as a business coach, fitness parallels to our business stuff that we talk about all the time. And so it's sort of these themes that keep coming up. And I know one of the themes that comes up a lot, whether it's for fitness or mental health or building a business, is this idea of having compassion with yourself for where you're at, and then having discipline to show up on the days that maybe you don't want to do it. And I know when you talk, both of you, about mental health, you talk a lot about compassion and discipline. So can you sort of break down, and you can take turns or one of you can take this, but can you break down what does compassion and discipline mean to you, and how do you sort of help people with practicing those things when they don't feel super tangible?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love this question because we do believe it's like the key, almost like two-step process, especially I would argue, I would say for anyone, but I definitely feel like for the entrepreneur, this is necessary, especially I feel like we've learned this more in the last year and a half being entrepreneurs ourselves. And it's really what's helped us continue to move forward, along with the support that we receive. Of course, it's like it helps us continue. But just like when we're on our own, these are the two tools that really have helped us and have helped a few of our clients as well. So I'll speak into
the irony of it too, right? You become your own boss to be an entrepreneur. And then if you're listening and you've done this, you can completely understand what I'm about to say, but you wake up every day and you're kind of like, what am I supposed to do? And it's really easy to maybe hit the snooze button or just feel really overwhelmed and start adding to-dos to your to-do list because you don't even know what to do. And you're like, I just need to be busy. And so as humans, we do really well with routine and structure. And so I'm excited. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I love this idea of discipline because it's really hard.
It is so hard. And it is so easy, like you're saying, to hit that snooze button because you are your own boss and you don't have someone else holding you accountable. And for us, there's two of us, but there's a little bit of a danger to that. And I'm happy to speak into that some more in just a bit, because just as much as we can kind of like push each other forward, we can also hold each other back. Mm-hmm. And having other people, not inside of our business, but outside of our business to help us keep us accountable has also been huge for us. But in terms of like what we do for ourselves and what we do for our clients, we believe that the first phase of anything that you're encountering should be met with compassion before it's met with discipline. And this is why. So many of us, if not all of us, have been raised or exposed to certain situations where, that's where our core beliefs were built, where our sense of selves and our identities were built, that didn't necessarily occur in safe or supportive environments. And so there's parts of us that could be, like there's parts of us that we hide, right? That haven't been necessarily approved by society's standards or by our caregivers or anybody in our surrounding standards. And maybe those parts of us, or definitely those parts of us, need to come to light so that we don't carry around so much of the shame from kind of keeping them inside. And then there's parts of us that are great and have been kind of reinforced by society and by our loved ones, but maybe, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but I guess what I'm thinking of is like, okay, there's parts of us that we don't quite accept, and then there's parts of us that we do. And then those parts of us that we do accept, it's a lot easier to show up in the world in those things. Mm-hmm. But what oftentimes ends up happening, I would argue, is that those dark or shadowy parts, they rear their ugly heads without even us having the awareness of why it's happening, or like, and then we think something is wrong with us. Mm. So it's like, I like to think about compassion as a practice to hold space for all of the parts, for the good and not so good, for a lack of better terms, so that you can allow yourself to see yourself fully, and start to release some of that shame, some of that blame, some of that guilt, things that have just built up over years of time, because so many of us are so used to kind of just moving on and moving on to the next thing, that the compassion piece of our work that we do for ourselves and for other people is like allowing those parts to be seen, to be held, to be understood, to be held in a safe psychological space so that we can move into taking action, which Reese can definitely speak into the discipline piece of it.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like creating the safety within your body and within your mind and within yourself so that you can move forward.
Yeah. Before we jump into discipline, so I have a couple questions. The first one, you sort of spoke about the parts of yourself as almost, let's say, light and dark, for just lack of a better term, right? There's like lightness in us that we know and see and love, and then there's maybe darkness, which could be those shadows from trauma or core beliefs, past things that have happened. Is there like a third part where it's subconscious and we haven't uncovered those things in between dark and light? Like, can that exist?
That's a good question. Yeah. I feel like it definitely can.
Yeah.
Things that kind of just, you realize that like something triggers it and then you're like, oh, I didn't quite know that was there. And I would argue then those are the parts that we've really shoved down in there and we just completely forgot about. But
yeah,
that's a great point that there are parts of us that we kind of are unconscious until something might trigger it, and bring it to light.
Yeah. Or maybe a person can help sort of bring that up sometimes, or see it. We don't always see what's inside of us. The other question that I have too, I just want a little bit of clarity for the listeners, is compassion. And I say that in quotes, right? Compassion. Is that as simple as forgiveness? Like, is that what we're talking about? It's just like, yeah, just forgive yourself for that thing and move on.
Oh gosh. Forgiveness is certainly a piece of it. And I would say it's like the last piece of it. One of the last pieces.
Okay. What comes before?
I think what comes before is acknowledging.
Okay.
There's an acknowledgement that needs to happen. There's an acceptance of where you're at that needs to happen. I would say that the challenging piece would come when the discipline comes, but I think you need to acknowledge yourself. You need to accept yourself and others. Because there's a lot that we need to accept and acknowledge in others that have affected us internally. Yeah. And so, and I believe forgiveness is like almost the third piece to that.
Yeah.
Once you can acknowledge and understand yourself, where you're at, and have questioned yourself, I think self-talk is a huge piece of this. So in all of it is how you speak to yourself in this process is the biggest piece in compassion. And rewiring that, because that's a whole thing that we can get into. And then it leading to forgiveness. And
I'm such an analogy metaphor person, and I love to paint pictures. And for whatever reason, these are the two analogies that are popping up in my head right now. And they might not make full sense, but this idea that forgiveness might be actually the last piece is really important, because the way that I'm seeing it in my brain is sort of, you become the detective or the scientist, right? And so the first analogy that popped up for whatever reason was baking a cake. So if you put the cake into the oven and then you take it out and it didn't actually rise, or something happened where it was like gelatinous or something, it's sort of having the awareness of, oh, wow, like it didn't rise. And then having the curiosity of, let me figure that out. Maybe I forgot an ingredient or two, or I didn't put it in for long enough. And then accepting that just is, that's what happened. It's in the past. And so I can choose to learn from that and move forward. And then maybe in this instance, we don't necessarily need to forgive, but maybe we do, right? Like, oops, okay, I'm not an idiot. I'm not worthy. I just made a mistake. I'm human. And then sort of going into that level of forgiveness, and then approaching the situation again. Let me try to bake it again. And the other metaphor that came up, or analogy, was the same thing with like planting a garden, right? Or like planting a flower or a plant. It's like, cool, we can have awareness that it didn't sprout through the ground like it was supposed to. And so now I can get curious and go, is it the light? Is it the soil? Is it the lack of nutrients? Am I overwatering it? Is it underwatered? Accepting for where you're at, and then sort of moving forward from there. So I just love how you sort of framed what I feel is like the be all end all, which is forgiveness when I think of the word compassion, but you're like, no, wait, there's actually multi layers here of compassion. So once we sort of work through some of that compassion, then we volley it over to Reese, and she comes in with the tough love of discipline, right? So what does discipline mean? What is that for you? Is it like, smacking the ruler on the desk, just get up and do it, tough love? Or how do you integrate discipline into mental health?
Yeah. Discipline is interesting. I think it's also a term that is very off-putting for most.
Yeah, because it sounds like work.
It does. And it took me a long time to realize that discipline actually gives me freedom, which is really hard to understand if you're still very off-putted by discipline. But I think what helps also with discipline, going back to being curious and having self-awareness, just understanding how you operate. I spent a lot of years waking up 4:50 in the morning, rolling out of bed, brushing my teeth, and jumping into a session with a client for years, all day, like not even stopping to take a second for myself.
Was that natural for you? Was that hard for you? Did you hate that? Or was it just like part of it and you just did it?
It was part of it and I just did it, but there was a lot of resentment.
Of who? Yourself, the client?
Probably both. Probably both. I didn't realize until later on that I need my mornings for me. I need to do the things that I need to get done for myself. I need to get my workout in. I need to get my journaling in. I have to do those things first before I can actually start to fill up my client's cup. And that just comes from understanding how you operate. Maybe you are someone who operates in a way where you got to wake up at 5 and jump into work, and then and then you can jump into your own stuff and fill up your cup. So I think it's really important before action gets taken that the awareness is there, that you have an awareness of just who you are and how you operate. Yeah.
How do you find that awareness? How do you figure out who you are and how you operate?
Oh man. Unfortunately, I think a lot of it is trial and error.
Yeah. It's the doing, right? Like
yeah.
The clarity comes from the conscious of trying it.
Yeah, exactly. Just giving it a shot and seeing what works and what
is tough love.
A little bit. I'm definitely more the tough love in this equation. And then where the tough love comes in with discipline, there's this constant conversation of motivation. And this is what I hear a lot from my clients. Oh, I'm just so unmotivated. I'm not motivated to go to the gym, or I'm not motivated to journal. And I think that this is just my opinion, but I think that motivation is bullshit. I think it's fleeting. I think it's not something that is always going to be around. I mean, if you look at the majority of people who are successful, they're not motivated every day. What they have is discipline, and they have the discipline to do the things that they know need to get done in order to move the needle in their business or move the needle in their life, whatever that looks like. And there comes to a point where you kind of have to X out how you feel about it and stay in line with what you said you're going to do. So for example, if I tell myself I'm going to the gym tomorrow morning, I'm waking up at 6 and I'm going to the gym at 5:30, 5 o'clock when the alarm goes off, that's not the time to negotiate me going to the gym. But it's really easy to do that because I'm tired.
Yeah.
So in that state, it's really easy to be like, you know what? I'll do it tomorrow. You go back to sleep and then you wake up. And what happens when you wake up is you feel like absolute crap.
Yeah.
Because you didn't do the thing that you said you were going to do. And I think a lot of us fall into that cycle of not honoring our word to ourselves and not owning our commitments to ourselves. And that's where the resentment starts to come in. And that's where the lack of motivation starts to set in. But if you can find a way to discipline yourself and do the things that need to get done on a daily basis, then you'll start to actually feel motivated to do those things.
It's the chicken or the egg situation, right? It's like the motivation almost comes from, and this is in my experience, it comes from honoring my word and keeping that integrity and proving to myself that I can, even when I don't want to. And it's that muscle of like putting in the reps when you're tired. You know, I think I was at an event, years ago, maybe it was Tony Robbins, and he had said on stage, like, if you were to do 10 bicep curls, what's the most important rep? And the whole audience was like 10. And he was like, nope, 11. The most important rep is 11, and it's this idea of strengthening your discipline by practicing your discipline. And one of the things that we teach, especially in business, I say it all the time, motivation is not a content strategy, right? People are like, I'm just going to post when I'm motivated. I'm waiting to get motivated to post. And it's like, if you wait to post when you're motivated, or you wait to go to the gym for when you're motivated, you are not going to see the results that you want to see. And that's not me throwing shade. That's just the reality of it. So it does require you to get a little uncomfortable, because to your point, if you're the one who's in control of the snooze button and you don't have to be somewhere because you're your own boss and really no one's going to lay down the hammer, then you might get caught in a loop of sort of just doing it over and over. And the irony there is that then you're beating yourself up because you're mad at yourself, you're disappointed, you're frustrated, you're resenting yourself or those around you. And so now we're stuck in this loop of actually needing to do more compassion work, more of the awareness, the acceptance, the forgiveness, just to get us back to ground zero, which was like, if you just didn't hit the snooze button, then we wouldn't be in this situation. So really, really ironic here. Is there something specific that like tangible that you can talk to the audience about other than just doing it? Because I know that's like such an eye roll, right? So do you teach things, whether it's in lifestyle for an entrepreneur, scheduling, routines, fitness, mindset? Do you have like little tools or hacks? For example, in the fitness world, a lot of times we'll say things like just leave your workout clothing and your sneakers out the night before, right? So it's like, that's a little tiny hack that could make a really big difference. Do you have any sort of tools that you can share with us?
I definitely think setting yourself up for success, like setting out your clothes, is part of it. And I think Della can probably talk about this a little bit better, but having a reward system.
Ooh, tell me more.
Yeah. Well, I definitely know that, just that knowing the way humans operate and just like behaviorism, you think about a child and you're trying to get them to do something, because I do
Sticker
feel
chart.
like, yeah, pretty much some type of reward system. I don't know that the sticker chart would work for this scenario.
Well, it might work for me. You don't know how much I love stickers. Fun fact, I won sticker competitions like 3 years in a row back when I was a kid. I used to collect stickers.
What is a sticker competition?
Exactly what it sounds like. We would go to the store that sold all these stickers. It was called, I think it was called Zany Brainy or Noodle Cadoodle. It was one of those like kids learning toy stores, you know, and they had a lot of stickers. And every year they would host a sticker competition where you'd bring your whole collection and all your sticker books. And basically you would win based off of sheer volume of stickers, or like most interesting stickers, or most organized. So I had like fuzzy sticker books and puffy sticker books and holographic sticker books. Anyway, I digress. But so yes, a sticker chart might work for some adults, but what would probably be a better incentive? Or is that personal?
Yeah, it is personal. It depends on so what I personally like to do, and I've started to do this with both my habits and my rewards, is creating a menu of things that I know that I personally enjoy. So for example, we've actually been pretty consistent about like getting up and getting to the gym, and that hasn't been so much of a like something we choose off the menu, but starting to really practice like waking up and feeling into what you kind of need for the morning. I know that you've spoken about this before, is like expecting your morning routine to be like a to-do list is not necessarily super effective either, I would say. So waking up and kind of saying like, okay, maybe the gym is a non-negotiable, but the other things on the menu, like journaling or meditating or just being present, doing some breath work, whatever that may be for you, having those choices, right? And then you also have your menu of choices, or your menu of rewards, I'm sorry, for what you kind of get afterwards. So maybe it's like, yeah, I went to the gym today. I get to have my nice cup of coffee when I get home, and I get to enjoy that while I listen to a podcast or something.
Like the Digital Business Evolution podcast.
Exactly. It's my reward. So just having kind of like a list of reward, like a menu for yourself, where even if it's like, it doesn't necessarily even have to be for your routines, but I think more so than anything, I would argue your routines are likely something that's hard for you to establish if you haven't done so yet. But also personally for us, there's things in our business that I certainly don't want to do, right? Because they're so, you think you're not a business owner just by posting on Instagram. There's a lot of things that we have to do that I'm like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. How can I reward myself in this process? And as soon as I have it done, do something that's going to make me happy.
Yeah. And there's probably, I'm guessing, a difference in my brain, at least. There's a fine line between a reward being like deserving. So it's not that I have to do this thing to deserve or earn, 5 minutes off, or I don't know, a date night or something like that. Like I do think that there could be, and this is just my opinion, I feel that there could be like almost a danger to setting yourself up for having to like earn. And I, of course, go into fitness and thinking about food and the whole mentality around, I've earned my right to eat this ice cream. And I'm like, no, you're missing the whole point, right? So I think that there is a fine line that we need to caution when setting ourselves up for something like a reward. And so is there a way to, and I don't know if that makes sense, but is there a way to ensure I don't only do those reward things when I've quote unquote earned them, but maybe like sipping and having my coffee, it's just something I get to do every day, but it's also something as a reward?
Yeah. I mean, so it would really depend on the individual. If it's something that I wouldn't put something that you do like just regularly every day as a reward on your menu. So if sipping your cup of coffee is something you're going to do regularly, that wouldn't go on your menu. I'd choose something that's just slightly different. Maybe it's a little bit of a longer walk, maybe, and that could look different for everybody. I don't know if you go on daily walks, but if it's not a part of your routine, just allowing yourself to have that time and space. I like that you mentioned like earning it, because it's true. It's like you're worthy of it regardless, right? But it's more so the way that I think about it is almost like tricking your brain into making it exciting. It's not even like, oh, you're deserving of this, so you get it. It's more like, yes, you did it. It's like
Gamifying.
and and like the celebration of it. Like you fucking did it. Yeah, that's I'm sorry. Oops.
It's okay. We can beep that out.
You did it.
You did it.
It doesn't pack the same punch.
You freaking did it.
Freaking did it.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, that's really how I view it. But I can certainly see how like it can be tricky of like, oh, you only get this because you earned it versus like, yeah, let's make this exciting. Let's celebrate the fact that you did this and you get this reward, not something that you would get any other day. So definitely if you're choosing your reward menu, I'd choose something that is still fun and exciting for you that you can do at home or just like near your home, but it's not necessarily something that's part of your everyday routine or everyday, like I guess, rewards of things that you kind of provide to yourself throughout the day, regardless. To kind of keep yourself going.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that once, I think this is really helpful for like the beginner who's starting to get the routine, but what starts to happen is the more you do the things that you're supposed to get done, doing those things in itself becomes a reward.
Yeah.
Because you start to feel really good about the fact that you're honoring your word to yourself. And that's what it's become for me. It's like, oh, I got up and I went to the gym and I did my meditation. I did the things I said I was going to do. That instantly makes me feel amazing. And that becomes my reward.
Yeah, I want to just quickly add to that because I feel like for children, it works in very much the same way.
Sure.
You don't kind of provide a reward contingency under the assumption that they're going to be receiving this reward for the rest of their lives, because that's not sustainable. And the same thing can happen for us. Like we can set up like, okay, this, I have this reward menu to do this one thing. I'm going to reward myself for the next 2 weeks or whatever amount of time. And the idea is that over time, once you develop the habit, you don't even need the reward anymore. The reward becomes the habit in and of itself.
You should see the sticker chart that I have in the bathroom for brushing my teeth. It's like out of control. I nail it every day, multiple times a day. It's so awesome all these years. No, I love what you're saying, and sort of this idea that it will eventually turn into a habit, which is probably the goal. And then you get to habit stack, which is, adding on the next habit. And then the next thing you know, it's like brushing your teeth. I love that. I love that. Okay. I want to shift gears, like hardcore shift gears, because I can talk about all this like fun and fluffy stuff with you all day. And this is super helpful for the audience members, but I think it would also be really helpful for people listening to talk about maybe the a little bit darker side of specifically something like entrepreneurship or just putting yourself out there. So even if you have a 9-to-5 job, there are definitely moments in your life where maybe you are getting out of your comfort zone, having a difficult conversation, or not having it, but thinking about the fact that you need to have a difficult conversation, maybe getting out of a relationship or wanting to leave your job or just putting yourself out there, right? I mean, I'm thinking even parents at like a PTA meeting having to speak, maybe they don't like to public speak. Let's talk about some of the mindset stuff that comes up specific to entrepreneurship. I know for me and all of our clients, we hear a lot of times self-doubt, limiting belief, fear of judgment, fear of failure, rejection, people saying no, people ghosting them. Let's just start talking about it. How do you sort of pursue the dance of entrepreneurship when you're also in a season of that stuff is really prevalent and hanging and looming around?
Yeah, I love that you asked this because I've been thinking a lot about this lately. And I think what comes up for me is I've noticed that we're constantly having to shift our perspective every single day. It's multiple times a day having to shift the way that we're looking at things. And this came up for me this week with comparison. And as an entrepreneur, especially a coach, it's really easy to compare yourself to all of the peers that you're following. And Della and I have been in business for 1.5 years now.
Yeah.
And, you see other coaches out there like six figures in 6 months, and I hit my first $1 million in a year and a half. And then you start to think like, oh shit, like it's been a year and a half for us. Should we already have $1 million?
Yeah.
And it's easy to kind of fall into that
Yeah,
loop.
what are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really helped me is getting really clear on my definition of success, because it's really easy to, and we've had really great days financially, we've had really low days financially, or months. And it's really easy to measure your success with your business specifically all on finance and all on the income that you're making. And that would be such a disservice to everything else that we've done in the past year and a half. And one of the things that comes to mind is the relationship that we've built with you. I mean, when you really think about it, we've been able to create a relationship with our mentor, which is nuts, because most people don't even know their mentor. You know, they follow Gary Vee on Instagram and they get all of his content and they learn from him, and that's cool. But we actually get to have a friendship with you, which is crazy. And that's something that could easily be dismissed if we're just looking at the numbers. But that to me means so much more than the money that is going to come in, right? It's only a matter of time if we just keep doing the things and we keep focusing on the strategy and doing the things that we need to do. So that's been the biggest, I think, shift that I've made in this year is recognizing what is successful to me and being really clear on that, and constantly having to do that just managing the perspective of, okay, I could look at it this way, or I could look at it like, oh, wow, look at everything that we've done in a year and a half. Like how cool the community that we've built, the network of people that we have in our corner.
Just the pivots and the programs you've created and the lives that you've changed. It's so cool. And I'm honored to be friends with you. So thank you so much. It's a two-way street, or in this case, I guess like a three-way. It's kind of like a fork and then like parallel, right? You know, the comparison thing is so real. I'm wondering, are you surprised, either of you, at how prevalent that is and relevant that is for so many entrepreneurs as you've gotten yourself in these like bigger rooms and people that are further along in their journey? I know we were just at our mastermind retreat and there's girls doing close to $1 million a year, and my mentor's there. And has it sort of opened something up to you or shown you something that you didn't realize, like, wait a minute, actually everybody at every level struggles with this? Has it made that feel more human, more relatable?
For sure. Yeah. It's almost helped it sink in that it's almost like comparison is a natural human behavior. Let's call it. And so much of us create the shame around the comparison because we don't speak into it. But the power of speaking into things is that you start to see that you're not alone, and that like we are all struggling with it at one point or another. And I think it's kind of crazy to me because I feel like when we first started our business, it was like with this idea of like, let's hit those 10K months. And we had a lot of these like finance related, I guess, goals in mind to measure our success. It's like, yeah, if we're making money, that is success. But I think it's so important for people to know just how natural it is that all of these kind of dark or shadowy things do come up for us. The comparison, the self-doubt, like you were saying, the just wondering if you're enough for this, if you're wondering if people even care, if you're good enough, like so many things come up for I think all of us.
Yeah.
And so I think for the person who's like, and this may be going away from your question or what we were talking about, but it's like for the entrepreneur maybe looking to start, if you haven't started yet, if you're like, okay, I know that I want to try it, but I'm still in a 9-to-5. I think it can get really, I guess the word I'm looking for is like, when you're looking forward to something new, you tend to focus, I would argue, on the more positive things, like, oh, this is how, like all of the ways that it can go right. But in everything, there are challenges, right? There aren't just like the 10K days. There are also the $0 days.
Yeah.
And there are the days where you doubt the crap out of yourself. And you're just like, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore.
Is anyone even listening? Yeah. Identity, death.
Yeah. There's so much. And I think that it's a natural part of the process. And I think it's time for people to begin, and maybe people are already doing this, but to continue normalizing the fact that it's both in entrepreneurship. And I will never forget, I was listening to Lori and Chris talk about this, and they were talking about just their dream. And I think it was like Chris was just having a few off days and he was mad that he had to work or something. And then, or I think it was the other way around. Lori was a little bit like pissy about it. And then he's like, but this is all part of the dream, like the good and the bad. It's all part of the dream.
Yeah.
And so just remembering that, I feel like is huge, but knowing that a lot of that darkness is going to come up for you, especially as an entrepreneur. And I think being able to navigate that can be challenging if you're by yourself, for sure.
Yeah. So I want to come back to that, the navigation part. I love this idea of defining what success looks like. And in my experience, that is always changing. So the word you said was perspective. My perspective, my definition of success has changed so many times throughout my journey, not just like 1 year to another because it's a different goal, but literally 1 week to the next week, I could change my definition of success. And the more that I grow and learn about myself and sort of do the work, for lack of a better term, the more I recognize that my definition of success is less tied to or rooted in things that are external, awards, accolades, certain numbers, money. And on the same side of the coin, like we do have to pay our mortgage, right? We have team that we pay. So there is the reality there. I have a psychology question for you, Della. I don't know if you can answer this. So I'm going to throw this at you right now. And then we'll come back to some navigation tools so we can help the audience members that are listening right now. When we talk about things like comparison and sort of having that awareness around our triggers, I would love to know your thoughts based in psychology around whether or not, let's go with social media, unfollowing accounts that trigger you, that you find yourself comparing yourself to, or muting those accounts so that you're no longer seeing that, could be perceived as avoidance. Right. But it's also like knowing your edge, and that's not healthy for me. So is there any sort of distinction between the two? How do you discern, like, I'm hiding and running away from it and using avoidance tactics, or I just know my edge and this is not healthy for me because every time I see his or her account, I compare myself and I'm just in this negative spiral?
Yeah. So I've actually been managing some of this myself recently. I like that you're asking this because I do believe that it comes in waves. And I think obviously you need to know yourself in order to be able to kind of figure out the time and place in which it is avoidance, or you're actually like looking out for your well-being. I think the biggest indicator to me personally of whether I know whether to mute or unfollow or not is, I guess the best way that I can describe it is like, am I consuming this and then feeling like resentful, or like, I think being in tune with what emotions arise can be so informative. So maybe it's like, I think if it gets to a point where that resentment or that bitterness or whatever it is that comes up for you is impacting the way that you are then running your business, or that whatever it is that you're going to do for your business on that day, that post, it could be something as simple as that post. Maybe I see someone and they're so triggering to me that I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, it's going to actually stunt me from moving forward in my business. That's when I would say just mute. And for now, right? I don't know if I would unfollow, to be honest. I've muted people and then unmuted them when I've passed a stage of like, well, I kind of just needed space on my own for now. And now I can continue to consume them.
But in that space, are you also doing the work internally to like sort of navigate and recognize why that stuff is coming up in those triggers? So ultimately you're doing both. It's like I'm muting them to give myself the space to do the work that's necessary so that hopefully when I see them in the future, after I've done the work, I'm sort of healing myself in that process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would even say like unmute them before you're probably even ready. Like exposure to them can actually allow you to build a tolerance for that. So it's so
crazy. It's just such an interesting concept too, because what we might not realize, or we often forget, is that we are the creators of what we're consuming. And we're so quick to blame the algorithm or like hate on the app, but you, the person behind the account, are the one who's actually aggregating the algorithm. You're literally creating the stuff that you're seeing. It's very different than it was when I was a kid. Those were the commercials on TV. You didn't have a choice. These were the TV stations. These were the channels on the radio. And now it's like, you're literally picking what you're consuming consciously, or maybe subconsciously, right? You're just kind of in the daze, but you're an active participant of what you are seeing. And then you start to see more of it. right? And which is the danger of some of the algorithms when we're talking about the dark side of things. It's like, once you follow one cat video, then all of a sudden all the other cat videos pop up and you're like, I don't even like cats. How did this happen? Right. So,
True.
okay, let's talk real quick because I can talk to you both all day. Some navigation tools that you were talking about. So when you are seeing or feeling something like comparison is really creeping in, or that self-doubt, what are some tools that you have, quick little things that you can do? Maybe, I don't know, journal prompts, or like, how do you get curious when something is bubbling up?
Yeah. If I am feeling triggered, especially like we'll just kind of stay in line with this example of like seeing someone on social media, and I'm noticing, I'm like, okay, I have to hit the mute button, but like, where is this really coming from? Because it's all a mirror for you, right? So definitely allowing yourself to kind of like break
personal
it out.
responsibility.
For real.
So much easier to just project out.
Oh my God, so much easier. But yeah, it takes a little bit of work to do this, but then you realize like you're creating so much internal freedom for yourself in the process. And so what I like to write, like jot down, is like, what are my initial thoughts coming up from being exposed to this, and physically write down those thoughts, see them visually, and start to question those thoughts. So are they true? What evidence do I have to support these thoughts? Can I think of alternative thoughts that would be more helpful? And then, I mean, it's all kind of a cycle. So we know that like your thoughts are going to influence your emotions. And if I'm thinking, wow, this person is so much better than I am, it's not going to make me feel great. It's going to make me feel kind of crappy. And then I'm not going to take action on my business. So how can it's almost like taking action from the thought. And granted, beliefs influence our thoughts. So what I kind of like to also do as well is like, okay, there's a pattern in these thoughts, and trying to uncover what the underlying belief is beyond that. And really starting to cultivate that within myself.
Sure.
So if the core belief is I am not good enough, which I would argue so many people have this core belief.
Yeah.
And mine manifests specifically as like, I am not smart enough, for example. I have started to just literally like look at myself in the mirror and tell myself like, you are smart. You are intelligent. These are all the reasons that you are smart. And like, you get to determine what smart is, right?
Yeah.
Like who even, like, where is that marker? And so you kind of get to question your thoughts and your reality. And if you're able to, I mean, you can get to your core beliefs, and I'm happy to kind of provide a separate tool at some point for how you can break down your thoughts to arrive at your core belief. But if you're able to get to your core beliefs and then work with those beliefs in supporting yourself, talking yourself through it, knowing that that belief might not actually be yours, and that you get to rewrite that belief. But it takes a little bit of practice. So it takes a little bit of action taking of just looking at yourself in the mirror. And even if it's 1 minute a day that you're just looking at yourself and saying, I love you and I forgive you for holding on to that belief. And just kind of building from there is the best way that I've known to kind of improve not just your relationship like with yourself, but improve your relationship with those negative thoughts that we all have. And cultivating our relationship with ourselves and being able to have those conversations with ourselves. Sometimes clients are like, I feel crazy talking to myself. And it's like, no, you're in a relationship with yourself for the rest of your life. It's your longest
relationship. Yeah.
So
I love that you sort of gave these sub prompts on the prompt of there's like the emotion, but then it's like, do I have fact around that? Is there evidence of that, where that is true or where I'm believing it's true? And sort of, can I rewrite that? And what other stories can I create? So I love these little sub prompts. Reese, do you have a particular tool aside from like these questions or journal prompts, for lack of a better term?
I think what comes up for me and what really helped me was, so I felt for most of my life just completely misunderstood. I felt like something was wrong with me, like I was broken, and all these negative thoughts that I would have, it was just me having them. And it wasn't until I allowed myself to be seen and have someone kind of mirror back to me that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. The comparison, the self-doubt, the judgment, all of it is normal. We literally can't control that. Even our thoughts, for example, our nervous system, our conscious mind, our subconscious mind, it's all set up in a way to protect us and keep us safe and to seek threats and safety all the time. And that's pretty cool. So once you kind of understand that, you recognize that, okay, I'm not necessarily in control of that negative thought, but I am in control of my response to it. And that's the biggest thing I think that's really helped me with my mental health, specifically the past year and a half, was just recognizing that I'm not alone and that it is normal to have these thoughts. It's normal to doubt yourself. It's normal to compare yourself.
Yeah.
And then letting it be normal. But what's not normal is you continuing to fall into a cycle where you're making it mean something about you and it's stopping you from taking that action that you desire.
Yeah. Isn't it wild that it takes us like 20 or 30 years for most of us to start seeing this, and then we get to just unlearn everything?
Yep.
I've read that before. It's like you spend the first 30 years of your life learning things, and the last, 60 years unlearning them. It's like, oof. But
Yeah.
that's the human experience. And when we change the perspective and we get to look at it again as this kind of, you're the scientist, you're the researcher, you're the detective, it's a game, and it's fun, and it's the game of life, and we write the rules just like we do in the business. And that comes up so often with our clients when they're upset about a launch or how something went or didn't go. And it's like, you're the one who wrote the rules. You're the one who said it had to be 5 people that got enrolled. And if you didn't enroll 5, then you quote unquote lost. Change the
Yep.
rules. Just change the rules of the game, and you'll win, right? And the more that you win, similar to the discipline, the more confidence it will build, and the more motivation you'll have, and the less you're going to have to sit in the forgiveness and the compassion and the awareness, because it's like, okay, cool. Now we're on the upward trajectory. Oh man, I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface. Like we just scratched the surface, because I'm like, we didn't even get to talk about so much of like the belief stuff, the core beliefs and the lens and through which you see the world. And so, you had mentioned that you have something for us, and I would love to hear about what that is and how the listeners can find you and work with you and what cool tools you have. And if you could tell us that now before people tune out, and then we'll get into some just quick round rapid fire questions. So where can everybody find you? How can they work with you? And what are these cool tools? How do we get our hands on them?
Cool. So you can find us over mainly on Instagram, conscious.coaching.collective. In terms of the free tools that we offer, I'm happy to share a link with you where they can just access a quick PDF on how to uncover some of those core beliefs. And we will also be sharing a wait list with you for our upcoming group coaching program that will be starting in January, most likely. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll drop those links in the show notes. And then before we go, I have a couple quick questions. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go.
You could decide if you want to one of you answer or both of you answer. You can answer at the same time and duke it out. It's totally up to you. And I'd love to know, when it comes to this first question, are you actually doing the same thing? What are you currently reading? Do you read the same books?
We do not read the same books.
Okay, cool. So what are you currently reading?
I'm actually reading Building a Story Brand.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
Such a good one. Donald Miller.
Yes.
Yes.
Courtesy of the retreat, just say.
I just downloaded Eric Thomas's new book, You.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. What'd you want to be when you grew up? Like elementary school?
Oh, soccer player.
Veteran.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah. I love that. Favorite movie?
Step Brothers.
Favorite movie?
It's not the same answer?
Well, Step Brothers is one of my favorite movies. Yeah.
Okay. We can go with that one. Best piece of advice you've been given? Life, business, doesn't matter.
Let it go.
Are you going to sing for us now?
I can do it.
Be a little delusional when it comes to your self-belief.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, this one you're going to answer separately, but together. This is hypothetical, don't get excited. If I were to cut you a check tomorrow for $50,000 and you had to use it for in and around the business, you can separate it. You can use it in one lump sum. What would you invest it in? How would you use it?
Hire an accountant.
Cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would say for messaging and marketing.
Yeah.
For marketing. Cool.
For marketing messaging.
I love it. All right. Our last and final question. We all know that our businesses are a reflection of us, and they grow to the extent that we grow, and they grow to the extent of the challenges that we're willing and able to manage. So we believe that we're always growing and evolving, and that's why we named it the Digital Business Evolution. So I'd love to know, this is separate, what is your next either personal or business evolution?
Ooh, I think for the both of us in our business podcast, for sure, starting our business together.
Yeah.
Can I be a guest?
Oh, duh.
Always.
Multiple times. And then for me personally, I think it's public speaking.
Yes. I love
Yeah.
As much as that makes me want to poop my pants.
that. Bring it on.
And I think for me individually is starting to create more parenting resources online and in person, which I have done for a long time with a clinic, with a university, with other people, but have felt some, I guess, doubts in doing it on my own. So I'm excited to step into kind of this next level and push myself to do things on my own that I know will help people.
Awesome.
And I'm just doing a disservice by not sharing, honestly.
Yeah, really. And if you had to pick something for the business outside of podcasting?
Something for
Retreats.
Me. Yeah.
In-person retreats. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. We've got a new podcast coming out in 2023, so you'll have to listen in. If you loved this episode, let us know by taking a screenshot. And the best gift that you can give back to Della and Reese for their time and all of their beautiful nuggets of wisdom here is to share that out on social media. Tag them tag them at conscious.coaching.collective and tag me at I am Jessica DeRose. Let us know what some of your aha moments were, some of your takeaways, or just the fact that you loved the episode. It's the best gift that you can give back. And Della and Reese, I love and adore you both. I'm so grateful for you being here.
We love you too.
Love you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
As always, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.